This podcast is for professional voice teachers to answer the question, how do I grow my teaching business and even break out of that one-on-one lesson model so that I can reach and teach who I want whenever I want. I'm your host, Allie Tyler, voice teacher of over a decade and marketing and business coach for fellow voice teachers. Welcome to the Voicepreneur podcast. Hello, lovely voice teacher. Welcome back to another episode of the Voicepreneur podcast. I am so excited and feeling very inspired to bring you this episode, an episode that I really don't have very many notes on, and I kind of wasn't planning on actually even bringing onto the podcast, truthfully, but I just feel like I really want to talk about this. I think it's a really, really important topic, and it's something that, of course, is inspired by you all. I'm always inspired through the conversations that are happening inside of the Voicepreneur program, as well as inside of the Facebook group, as well as on Instagram with you all personally, all the things. My job, I feel sometimes, is to just kind of like get an energetic pulse of what's happening in my world. And actually, that's kind of like a fun business assignment for all of us as business owners and leaders. We can always be tuning in to what our people need. Like, what is going on? What are the conversations that they're having in their head? What are the conversations they're having in person? And of course, this is going to require a little bit of digging, as everything is with business. It's always about research and getting into your ideal client's shoes. But a really great way that you can connect with your ideal clients, your ideal students, is by doing your very best to sense what they need. And this is seasonal. This is, it could depend on the year, right? Like 2020 was the freaking weirdest year ever. We all needed very different things than we thought going into that. So yeah, we get to kind of take on this responsibility for tuning into what I like to call the pulse. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I feel like the energy or the conversations that I have been having recently, so powerful, so fascinating. And it's really about what it means to be a business owner. And I've talked about this way early in the podcast. I think it was one of the very first episodes I put out, the difference between being a voice teacher and a voicepreneur, this kind of quasi-identity I sort of made up. But ultimately, it really comes all down to this. It comes down to whether or not you are treating your business like a teaching business or like a private studio. Let that sink in. That's a big one. And hear me out when I say that there is no right or wrong. Of course, you know, and if you don't know, I hope that you will learn very quickly that there is no right or wrong with business and marketing. Everything is testing. Everything is unique to every individual and what they want and what works for their life. And it's kind of like parenting, actually, now that I think about it. It's like you can't teach people how to parent because everyone's going to do it differently, right? So just know that everything I tell you, of course, is not black and white. It's never going to be like, you have to do this and this is the only way and don't do that. I mean, there are definitely don'ts and there are certain things that, you know, like just kind of turn people off when it comes to marketing, and that's important to be aware of. But ultimately, if you want to treat your teaching business like a private studio, that's great. Do it. That's awesome. Again, this needs to align for you and your life. But if you are listening to these episodes and you've been following the Voicepreneur for a little bit, or maybe you are brand new and you are like, yeah, I want this to be a business, man. I'm a freaking business owner. I am a voice teacher, but I am also also a business owner. And that means we have to think differently. We have to act differently. We have to approach things differently. And I see this a lot where sometimes we allow our just like our conditioned mind, our voice teacher conditioned mind to actually limit us, right? That can limit us reaching our highest potential because we have sort of these ingrained beliefs or, especially limiting beliefs, things that are really not allowing us to step into this role of business owner. There's so many examples I can give you. And I think actually just a really simple one comes down to money. It's a really easy way for all of us to relate to this, right? We all relate to the fact that money and making money is hard. And it's kind of, it's like really annoying. You're like, man, life would just be so much easier if I didn't have to freaking like stress about money, And we've all been there. I totally understand this. I'm a voice teacher too. We are always going to be thinking in the back of our minds about money and how to make money. And again, we'll do a whole separate podcast episode or, maybe a training or some sort about money mindset. That's not actually where I'm going with this conversation, but it's important to look at how these behaviors come up. So here's a really quick example of what I'm talking about. As a voice teacher, we are so used to, and I think this is going back to the way that we used to take voice lessons. I know I've been taking voice lessons since I was 12, and we used to pay cash or write a check, right? We tend to take our money right then and there. We didn't used to have electronic payments back then. That wasn't even that long ago, right? But now, especially with COVID and everything that has happened getting virtual, this is totally normal. Everybody's doing transactions online. But what does that mean financially? It means that there are transaction fees. And this is something that we as voice teachers are not acclimated to. We're like, transaction fees? WTF? What? How do I even navigate that? And I know that it's annoyed me too, where I look at my bank account and I'm like, that's not what I charged for that. What the heck? But here's the thing. If we are approaching it in that mindset, that is what I would call the, I don't even know. I don't know the right way to say this, but it's kind of just that limiting voice teacher mentality. But if we approach it as a business owner, we can look at that transaction fee and go, okay, this is the cost of doing business. There are a lot of costs to doing business. And like I said, money is just one example of it, but I encourage you to be kind of tuning into that. Look at your relationship with money, look at your relationship with, let's say, transaction fees or expenses or investing, anything like that, things that are absolutely going to help you. They are meant to help you. That's what you're paying for. But there is something inside of you that is like, I don't want to pay for that, right? Like I said, I'm not here to blame. I'm not here to shame. I'm here to relate to you. I'm always here to relate to you. I know exactly how this feels. And the moment I started becoming a quote unquote boss, I have a mug. I think it says boss babe or boss girl. No, it's boss lady. That's what it is. It's boss lady. I was like, yes, I'm a boss freaking lady. The moment I decided to embody this, the moment I was like, what would it be like if I treated my private studio like a business? Everything changed. I'm not kidding. Everything changed. Everything from boundaries to how much I was making to who I was attracting to the community to this podcast. I mean, this would never exist had I not taken my business seriously and started acting like a business owner and not just a voice teacher. When it really comes down to it, when I think about this, I believe that embodying this boss lady, or you don't have to be a lady, you don't have to genderize anything, but this boss, right? This boss person, it really comes down to two things: your mindset and your systems. That's it. When you can cultivate the right mindset and you streamline your systems and you know what your systems are, the systems that actually help you, that is what it means in my mind to be a badass boss. You are a badass boss when you do that. So as you go into 2023, a question that you can always ask yourself, and this is something I try to ask myself every day, really every day that I am working on my business: who is my highest, most badass self And how would they behave today? Who do I need to become to be that person? If you follow anything about manifestation, you may have heard the concept of acting or living, quote unquote, as if, right? So as if you are that person who already has the thing that you want. What does that person do? How do they behave? And I think that there's a lot of controversy around this. I've heard both sides where people don't like the idea of acting differently, right? We want to stay authentic to our feelings. This kind of relates to toxic positivity, which is totally a thing. And I think it's just really individual and requires our own intuition to decipher when we are kind of approaching toxic positivity. And essentially what I mean by that is, let's say that you're like, okay, I'm going to act like my most badass boss self. I'm going to do what Allie's talking about. I'm going to say all these mantras, like, I'm a badass boss. Look at me go. And you tell yourself these things, right? But you don't feel them. If you're not feeling it and you're only acting it, it's actually maybe doing you more harm than good. So that's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is tapping in to who we already are. We already have so much potential, right? That saying that everything we ever need is within us already is so true. Your confidence, your strengths, your skill level, your flow, your zone of genius, you already have it. It's in you already. It's often our egoic mind, our bad habits, the little things that distract us throughout the day, whether that's mental or physical, that are actually keeping us from embodying our most badass self. So here are some more questions to think about. How would your most badass self treat their boundaries? How would they treat their morning routine? How would they treat their habits, their daily little habits? I know that I'm still working on this personally. I am catching so many bad habits lately where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been doing that for so long. I've been so unconscious in certain ways in my life. And that is such great information for us to know. It's never about shaming, my friend. We are always checking in to be like, I noticed that those habits may not be in alignment with what it is that I actually desire. So perhaps I may want to change them. So yes, it definitely comes down to how you behave in your day-to-day life. It also comes down to how you behave with your clients, with your students. How would your highest best self respond to your clients? How would they post on Instagram stories? How are you going to be thinking like a leader and not just a follower? That's really what this all comes down to. It's like we start tapping in to what it means to be creative and innovative and confident. We are leaders. I hate to break it to you, my friend, but you are a leader. You are guiding people towards something that is extremely transformational. Like extremely. So I want you to embody that. You can embody that, not just as a voice teacher again, but as a business owner. How are you going to be the leader of your own business? There's a difference in how you approach comparison, for example. Are you following a bunch of voice teachers on Instagram, or are you following your ideal students? Are you comparing yourself to other people in our community over and over and over again? Or are you staying in your own lane? This is so important because your highest, most badass self would never give the time of day to other people, would never hand over their power to other people thinking that they can't do something because someone else has already done it or they did it better or any of the type of thoughts that you're having, which again, totally justified, but not necessary. Totally not necessary. There's also a difference in how you prioritize things. When you are a badass business owner, you know what is most important and you focus on that. You don't need to try and be everything to everyone. You don't need to take every student. You don't need to work super late because you have to take on more students because of something or other. You don't need to teach on Saturdays. You don't need to do any of that stuff, especially if it is rooted in you trying to people please or save everybody. That is not what badass business owners do. Badass business owners know what is important and they stick with that. And anything that does not fall in that category is just not worth their time. And hey, I'm not saying it's easy peasy. When you are in the beginning stages of your business, it is freaking hard. You are going to be working on Saturdays and late nights and all of that stuff, but you're working on the right things, right? You know what it is that you're focusing on. You're not trying to do everything because you feel like you have to. These are all such important mindset shifts that are going to help you embody this new badass business owner version of yourself. Now, in terms of your systems, the way I like to think about your systems is that your system is essentially anything that keeps your business running. It's your onboarding process, it's your payments, it's your schedule, it's your policies, it's all of it. It's your boundaries. Your boundaries are absolutely part of your system because your boundaries influence your policies, right? So when we're thinking about a system, all you want to be thinking about is, does my system reflect my highest, most badass boss self? That's it. That's it. All of the little things that make your business run, you can really take a look at, like really observe them and just mentally note the things that you're like, ooh, yeah, this is totally fun and exciting and in my zone of genius. Maybe it's surprising, right? Like I didn't think my zone of genius was going to be website design or making keynote slides. I love those things. I love those things. So you may be surprised that some of the tasks that you have as a business owner are actually really fun and delightful for you. And then you will also tune into the things that are a total drain and a drag. And yes, like I said, you got to do it sometimes and that's okay, but be mentally taking note. Because again, the goal here, if we are embodying our most highest badass business self, I really need more words here. I need like a different way to say this or maybe an acronym or something. I don't know. But if we're really embodying this person, ultimately, we're going to be outsourcing some of our tasks, right? Like that would be amazing. Everybody should have that goal 100%. You can absolutely and should ask for help. So now you get to figure out with your own experience and with practice the things that you do want to outsource, whether that's now or down the road, and the things that are super fun and exciting for you as a business owner. So that's really what it means to cultivate these kind of systems that help you. And don't worry, my friend, I got you covered. We're going to be covering systems a lot more in 2023, but I wanted to plant this seed now because it's approaching real soon. And maybe you're listening to this in 2023, and that's great. If you are, then it is never too late to start. So you can always get started with really reshaping the way that you treat your business and how you act as a business owner, right? That can be something that you start right now. Because here's the tea, my friend. Here it is. This is the ultimate truth. When you start embodying the person that it is that you want to be, you start attracting more of what you desire. Really, really and truly, it's how it all works. And it is such an amazing, amazing thing. So wherever you are at in your business, in your life, first and foremost, you got to love on yourself and know that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. I promise. Everything is a learning experience if you treat it that way. And I hope that this episode inspires you to start thinking and acting and embodying what it means to be your most badass business self. I am cheering you on always. If you want any additional support, you can come find me over on Instagram where I'm sharing tons of fun things over there. And enrollment is always open for the Voicepreneur program. This is where we go real deep into really growing and scaling your teaching business. So talk about being a badass business owner. You are literally surrounded by all of these badass business owning voice teachers. These are the Voicepreneurs. And these conversations that we have every other week, man, I get so inspired. Like, it's like a mastermind. You know, you come in and you have questions or you have thoughts and you leave and you just have so many more ideas and so much more clarity. I promise. Like, every single session is like that. And that's just the community calls. There is so much more where that came from. So if you are interested in joining us, check out the links inside of the show notes and you can always DM me with any of your questions. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. If you enjoyed this, take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and hey, extra bonus points, extra love for you if you will please rate and review this over on iTunes. I super duper appreciate it, and it really helps this podcast get in front of more voice teachers. Hey, we are a community after all. Remember, no competition. It is all about support and love over here. So thank you again for being here, and I will catch you in the next episode.